Hello, my name is Ben Klaas, and today I'm going to be doing another video about language learning. This time, I want to speak about a language that I have been learning consistently for at least the past 5 years. This language is Hebrew, and today I'm going to discuss with you my journey through the language, through some of the features of the language that I found the most difficult from the perspective of a native English speaker. So basically, I'll be going over a few things that I have found particularly challenging and that probably slowed down my progress, especially in the beginning of my language learning journey. The first thing that stands out as being a rather obvious impediment to learning Hebrew is the fact that it uses a completely different alphabet. Now, to be honest, it's not really Hebrew's fault because Hebrew has actually been written down for far longer than English. So, if anything, English is being written with the abnormal alphabet. So, yes, the Hebrew alphabet is written and read from right to left, as opposed to English and other languages such as French, German, Russian, and Greek that are written and read from left to right. I had to remember after starting a new line to start reading from the right side, not the left side. Instinctively, I found that I would start reading from the left, but then I would just get gibberish. At least in modern Hebrew, though, we have word spacing, unlike in the more ancient forms of the language, where, like with Greek, the words were often spaced right next to each other without any spacing, so it would be quite difficult to read through ancient texts like the Dead Sea Scrolls because you don't know when one word ends and another begins so clearly. The cursive script looks quite different from the printed script. The letters tend to be rounder and a bit curvier, which I guess is supposed to make it easier to write when you're in a hurry. However, some of the letters look very different from their printed forms, and at first glance, took me about 3 to 4 months to fully learn the cursive script. And before that, I wrote in the printed script, which a pen wouldn't be the best suited for writing printed Hebrew. I guess it wasn't really suited for that. Hebrew is a fundamentally different language from English in a way that languages like French, German, or even Russian aren't. Hebrew isn't even in the Indo-European language family. It actually belongs to the Semitic branch of the Afro-Asiatic family, which includes languages such as obviously Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, and a bit further afield languages such as Egyptian or Coptic, Berber, and Somali. The majority of the time, basic vocabulary in Hebrew does not correspond to similar equivalents in English. For example, hello is shalom. Doesn't sound like hello at all, unlike, say, in French where you could get allo or German hallo. And as I said, also with bread and milk. So bread in Hebrew is lechem, In German, it is Brot. In French, it is pain, which you may think, I don't know that word, but if you learned Latin, you probably know it. And the country in the Hunger Games is called Panem, which is apparently derived from that word. And then, perhaps even more obviously, milk. So, in Hebrew, milk is chalav, doesn't sound at all like English. In German, it is milch. And in French, it is lait. So, lait, okay, where does that come from? Oh, lactose, like that, like lacto, whatever. Okay, but you wouldn't have that luxury in Hebrew. Obviously, with the more advanced vocabulary, it gets a bit easier because then more of the words start being derived from Greek, Latin, and even English. Also to note, there are slang words constantly entering the language, especially from English these days, although perhaps you're not the most likely to encounter them in a textbook, probably more likely to encounter them on the street. Same could be said for a lot of Arabic-derived words, but considering the fact that Hebrew and Arabic are related, it's probably a bit harder to tell those words apart. The last thing that is strange about learning Hebrew, especially from the perspective of an English native speaker, is the system of grammatical gender. So unlike English and like French or Hindi, Hebrew has a two-gendered system with masculine and feminine words. This influences the structure of the entire language. For example, looking at technology, a computer is machshev. Machshev is masculine, but a camera, matzlema, is feminine. Why that is, I have no idea. I haven't asked a camera or a computer about it. This doesn't only apply to nouns. In fact, Hebrew nouns influence the adjectives and verbs that are used in the sentence. And the example, hu gadol, he is big, but she, gedola. So she is big is gedola, not gadol, like who. It's just something that one has to get used to when learning Hebrew. This also applies to verbs. For example, hu medaber ivrit, he speaks Hebrew, but he medaberet ivrit. She speaks Hebrew. You can hear at the end there is a suffix which is attached to medaber, which makes it feminine. So if you see a Hebrew word with a or et at the end, it is most likely a feminine word, but not always. Learning. I wish you well on your journey, and I want to inform you that learning a language seriously takes guts, and don't expect to feel confident in the language until at least a few years after you started. It's a long road ahead, but it is definitely a rewarding one.